Thank you, Samantha. And everyone knows that's attended previously. We always leave just 1 or 2 minutes at the end. I usually run right up to the end, but we'll try to leave a little bit more time this time. If you have some questions, certainly happy to entertain having them. So welcome to October's edition of This Month in Cyber. We try to spend 20, 30 minutes talking about some stories that occurred this past month, keeping up to date and fresh, whether it's part of your security awareness and ongoing efforts to be vigilant within your own organization. We try to make these stories relevant to a small and medium-sized organization that might be looking to make improvements. So with that, we have an agenda where we're essentially just kind of hoping to ride the coattails, if you will, of larger marketing initiatives, right? September was kind of all about emergency preparation. It was emergency preparation month, whether you knew it or not. We certainly talked about it here. October was security awareness month, which we had highlighted, as we were moving into October. And now as we kind of move into November, let's kind of discuss and look back and make sure that we've kind of dotted the I's and crossed the T's with regards to what those months should mean to ourselves as organizations. Obviously, ransomware is a very popular topic here on This Month in Cybersecurity. No doubt, we try to wrap a few stories around ransomware, and there's some big stories this month, including a Microsoft relevant story, and then something called the OFAC ruling that I thought you'd want to be aware of. And then we lumped some additional stories into work from home technologies. There's some things that are kind of under attack, some infrastructure items that we might have at your own organization. I want to make you aware of some vulnerabilities and patches that were released this month. So without further ado, I don't believe they're necessarily in that order, but we'll just kind of dive in and let the stories unfold. So September, again, was National Preparedness Month. And for that, part of our discussion, just to kind of recap, was to talk about how you should have an incident response plan from a cybersecurity perspective. After all, if you'll remember the NIST cybersecurity framework model, obviously a lot of people put a lot of effort into the protect area. But additionally, there's detect, respond, and recover. And while we can't protect from everything, and we certainly, detecting certainly isn't enough, we need to be able to respond when an incident does occur. And in order to respond effectively, you have to have a plan. And more importantly, you have to have a plan that's modern, up to date with some of the latest guidance. Does your incident response plan include something that's very likely to happen, such as a business email compromise, such as ransomware? Maybe you might want to even document some specific scenarios, stakeholders, what your communication plan is. So there's a technical component, a process component, and certainly a people component to this. And furthermore, there's a testing component. And I guess that's kind of the part I would like to stress with regards to your preparation plans. Why not put it through a tabletop type testing plan? What would we do, and gather some of the leaders and put an hour or two into evaluation of those things. Similarly, on your cybersecurity awareness, for which this month still continues to be Awareness Month, hopefully your users are part of a regimented security awareness plan, and whether it's the frequency of which is up to your organization to determine, but I might suggest something like a monthly plan where you're providing some education, whether it be something in a forum, something like this, a lunch and learn, a tidbit that goes out via email, but something organized. Video learning management systems are very popular. But again, similarly, while this revolves on the people aspect of things, this is something that needs, consistent rehearsal and consistent testing. And so I'd ask that you, very similar to your incident response plans, have some method for testing in there. And that testing can include phishing emails, as an example. It could involve quizzing. It could involve just verbal dialogue during the training and just asking people to kind of role play, if you will. So all of these are good, valid testing scenarios. Please note that if you don't have a testing program in place and kind of want to see what one looks like or baseline, we obviously offer a one-time phishing test free for your organization, where we'll send it in and usually get 5, 10, 20% of people clicking and responding oftentimes on an email, which isn't to point fingers, but it's at least to establish a baseline and know that you can do better. So, in addition to that, do know that we can help with regards to process, policy and process build for incident response plans. Looking at which data within your organization is particularly significant and might warrant to have additional plans built around them. Look at what vendors might need to be in place should you have an incident. Legal, insurance, forensics, recovery. All of those services should really have preordained and pre-signed contracts or capabilities to call these services and with known SLAs and things of that nature. Obviously, if you have an incident response plan and it needs, a touch-up, a dust-off, if you will, we certainly have the capability to evaluate. We have a modernization assessment where we can look at 7 to 10 different criteria on your modernization plan and look to see if it's up to snuff. And we have facilitated testing and production of results if you're interested in testing your incident response plan. I think I heard an interesting stat last couple of months ago when we provided us that you are 10 times, or was it 100 times? I think it was 100 times more likely to, it was 100 times more likely to suffer a organizational cybercrime than you were to get your building touched by a tornado, even if you live in Oklahoma. So a lot of people create these incident response plans or even DR plans around the idea of, their building's going to get destroyed. That's 100 times less likely, even if you're in Oklahoma, than a cybercrime. So prepare for the electronic cybercrimes first and foremost. All right, moving into infrastructure, a couple things that are of value, and these links certainly will be of value to you to kind of do some deeper dives, but VMware came out on October 20th with a series of patches. They were privately notified about some vulnerabilities for those that are running VMware, which is probably at least half of you based on our customer base. These vulnerabilities allow remote code execution, which is pretty much the highest mantra of the highest vulnerability that's possible. They are rated as critical vulnerabilities by the vendor itself. It's important to get these installed and validated. This is around CVE 3992. In addition to these patches, I guess we find it beneficial for most of our customers to have a VMware health analyzer or health analysis done at least annually, which is a turnkey process we have for doing that. I guess that's really about it. It's VMware's a very nasty set of patches that came out on October 20th. Hopefully you already knew about it and are making plans to patch it. If not, know that we're patching a couple thousand systems a month. Some are workstations, many are servers, and certainly many of them are VMware hosts. And we've already walked through this process for many customers. Additionally, and this is a kind of a bad month for a number of things here, but Microsoft, and this was a patch that came out in August, but it's now being actively exploited as of October 5th. This is called the Zero Logon vulnerability. There's a group of nation-state hackers in Iran that are currently exploiting this on domain controllers. It's taking advantage of the NetLogon process. The group that's taking advantage of this is called Mercury. They tend to focus on intergovernmental organizations, government humanitarian aid, human rights organizations, and so forth. It will allow a external hacker, so keep in mind they have to have some sort of presence on the network, because most domain controllers, and I can't speak to all, most domain controllers are locked behind firewalls. If they're exposed, then this vulnerability is obviously external too, but once present on the network, a domain controller that is infected with the NetLogon or taking advantage of the NetLogon vulnerability, they're able to authenticate against it and essentially see authentication protocols. So they can take it over the unpatched domain controller, and basically they take over the internal network. So this is one of the most serious patch, or one of the most largest vulnerabilities for the year. And currently, as mentioned, as of October, is being exploited. I had a further slide on this. I just gathered actually from internally. We've done a fair amount of patching of domain controllers on behalf of our customers. For those that have asked, the patch implementation, and here's some notes from our internal call on this. The implementation is really just a registry key. It's a registry tweak. It's very easy to apply. It doesn't require any reboots, things of that nature. However, after applying it, there are some applications and services that may cause some errors. Specifically, they'll give a 5829 error code in the system event log, in which case those need remediation. If you don't see the 5829, that means no applications are having difficulty, and shortly thereafter you can really lock it down even more. But kind of as a starting point, it's good to get this registry hack in place as soon as possible to determine if it's going to have any negative effects on your applications working. So just kind of giving you a heads up on that. We have a fair amount of experience with that. In there is noted the CVE that it's relevant to, and again, it's under active exploit as of October. All right, two additional ones in the infrastructure area. SonicWall, to our joy, those that are leveraging a SonicWall as part of our perimeter protection. Unfortunately, it's providing some perimeter lack of protection as of this month. Some vulnerabilities were discovered, and there are currently 800,000 devices that can be seen by the researcher. The severity code is a 9.4 out of 10, meaning extremely high. It's a vulnerability right in the operating system of the SonicWall itself. It's on the WAN port, meaning the internet-facing port. So all the known devices that can be seen are subject to this vulnerability from remotely. It requires no skill to take advantage of it, which is a low barrier for someone to take control. The symptoms are, and here's the good news, I guess the least thing that's going to happen is a denial of service and a crashing device. The worst thing that's going to happen, they believe, is code execution exploit. Again, this is not in the wild yet. An active exploit's underway, but because of its ease, they're anticipating this one's going to come on very quickly. And the article will note it, but it's CVE 5135. So if you have a SonicWall, get it patched. And last but not least, Aruba also, so this is HPE Aruba, not just their wireless access points, but indeed also their switches. There were some problems right in the kernel, which is never very good. That's the OS essentially that runs this. It scores a high. It's only 7.5 on a scale of 10. But they're basically suggesting get these patches installed. It's a little difficult. You do have to, it's on the internal interface, so it's a little more challenging to impact these, but it is another exploit that's possible out there to take advantage of. So please note that one. All right, and clearly with these devices needing patching, whether it be your virtualization infrastructure, switches, access points, servers. This is an area where we have experience. We have patching services that will take this off your hands or provide you either advisory help or as a managed service, take the complete responsibility where either on a monthly or on a quarterly basis, depending on your schedule that you're shooting for, we are doing things like this to the thousands on behalf of our customers. All right, we had a ruling this month, so we're going to skip into the ransomware topic. We had a ruling this month that will be highly impactful to if you have a ransomware event, so to your response plans. This would probably have to be folded into any IRP. Right now, part of the thought process might be, a debate whether you're going to pay a ransom or not. And obviously, it's no one's desire to pay a ransom. However, I think it's 30+% of organizations do. Oftentimes this is not highly announced, but they're doing it because their backups were impacted. And there's no other way to recover their business. They basically either pay the ransom or they're going to have a lot of hurt, right? They're going to be recovering backups maybe that they happen to have offsite from a year ago, or just plain building systems from scratch and hoping processes can kick in. What has happened this past month is something a little bit substantial. If everyone recalls the Garmin breach from a month or two back, Garmin was able to was under a $10 million ransom, and that was kind of the final straw, where the Department of Treasury basically said, hey, that $10 million was being paid to a foreign entity that was under sanctions from the United States government. And the Treasury Department said, you can't pay them. And Garmin and others prior to them had basically stated, well, we need to pay them because we need to recover our business. It's worth more than $10 million. You know, this recovery is hundreds of millions of dollars relative to our business model, and we're willing to pay the $10 million because we have no other options. It was illegal from what I had read, and there were ways that they were able to skirt around the legality of it through an intermediary. And what resulted this month was an OFAC ruling that basically stated that it is illegal and that you will be fined based on a few things, whether your security framework and what you followed, how much you followed a security framework relative to protection from the original breach, how much and how involved how early and how thorough the notification was to authorities, including governing bodies as well as authorities like the FBI, and was there full and timely cooperation with law enforcement both during and after a ransomware attack. So they're basically inserting, the Treasury Department is inserting themselves in the ransomware process and making it much more challenging for a lawyer or an entity or insurance provider to say, you know what, it looks like you have no other options, let's just pay your ransom. And so you can imagine a significant drag on the capabilities for an organization to recover in many instances. I guess that's kind of what the analysis is holding. And I think the intention is to double down on the fact that we don't want monies going out to these organizations, which really takes away kind of one of the backstop options that a lot of organizations focus on. So let's take a look at this story with regards to Blackbaud, which might also kind of tell the tale of why this ruling might have been necessary for the OFAC to have that ruling, and also kind of what it would have meant to them. So back in, as it turned out, as we kind of look back on the case study, we're going to look at a timeline here. Blackbaud is a company that has their cloud-based CRM. They're used predominantly by charities and further education bodies looking to capture details of current and future donors into their coffers. So a CRM system usually based around charities and education. In May, they had a ransomware event. Okay, we know this because in July they verbally disclosed that. So May was the event. Sometime in June, likely, they had, possibly in May, they determined that they did not have the technical controls or process controls in place to recover. So they arranged and had the hackers paid. Okay, in late May, June. And then in July, this is about 60 days after the event, they verbally disclosed the event on an earnings call. And they stated the cyber criminal did not access credit card information, bank account information, or social security numbers. Because protecting our customer data is our top priority, we paid the criminals, the cyber criminals' demand, with confirmation that the copy they removed had been destroyed. So they felt that they had been covered. They felt that they had done their due diligence with regards to the data. They felt that no data had been destroyed and that indeed their systems were recovered and no data was lost. Then in August, on the earnings call, they were doing notification letters out to everyone, and they were boasting that they had stopped the ransomware. This is some of their language that they'd used, and later added that because of insurance, that there was no material impact on their business. Then in October, just this month, in an 8K filing, indeed it was disclosed from the CFO, the cyber criminal may have accessed some unencrypted fields intended for bank account information, social security numbers, usernames, and/or passwords. And they know this because the data was out on the dark web and being found for sale. So some of the issues I guess we see with regards to this, their response was too slow to tell its corporate customers it had been breached and paid off the criminals. B, management was only focused on the stock valuation and that all is well there, and not focused on information security and the lack of controls maybe that could have been in place to prevent this or to recover from it easier. And third, they publicly relied on cyber insurance to kind of make good any losses it might have had, making it net zero. But in general, keep in mind the privacy laws that are enacted on anyone that's in there, especially things like GDPR or California's privacy protection and other acts that protect the data that's in there. So, a long time coming, but it's these types of backdrops, I think, that are causing reasons for people to say, you know what, this does have a material impact on things, and an event like this can be very detrimental to an organization. All right, I'm going to move things along in ransomware. There was a Trickbot. Trickbot is a very dangerous, it's called a digital superstructure for putting malware into the computers of unwitting individuals and websites. It basically puts itself into computers and then essentially has they become zombie computers and capable of executing code as well as being used later in other cybersecurity schemes. So in September, well, first of all, a few months back, maybe 2 months back, a United Healthcare Service, which has 256 hospitals, was impacted by Trickbot, and that was kind of like a warning sign that, oh, this is coming down the pipe. Trickbot is still well out there, and in fact, it looked like it was going to be used for political interference, and therefore the U.S. Cyber Command tried to dismantle Trickbot with direct attacks. The Department of Defense listed it as a threat to the voting systems and knockout result reporting websites, and they were unable to impact it greatly. So in October, early this month, Microsoft filed in court and identified 1 million what they call zombie machines. Many of those IPs were in country, but many more of them were also in what they called uncooperative national borders. So the US government, through a policy called persistent engagement, is allowing Microsoft to actually go out and attack to confuse configuration through code injections and succeed in temporarily breaking down communications between command and control servers and most of those million bots that Microsoft had identified. So Microsoft is fighting extremely hard to at least temporarily fight back the ramifications of the Trickbot zombies that are out there to protect election security, but know that this Trickbot ransomware is something that could be resident on many of the computers in here. All right, so with regards to mitigation, I'll kind of move a little faster here. There's, the Southeast Asia as well as Australia has found a large decrease in the exposure they have, 64% drop in ransomware this year. In Singapore, it's a 90% drop. They are following a Essential 8 security model, which I kind of listed up there. This was developed in Australia. It's quite simple, as you can see, 8 things to do, and you rank as either partly, mostly, or fully in compliance with the 8 items that are there. The organizations that are following that are having a very good effort with regards to remediation against ransomware. NIST and others certainly have also models that certainly can be followed. We have produced a model, that's something based on NIST, that's something like this, and based on our experience. No matter what model you follow, I guess the point is follow something, and let's get ourselves in a good path to be well followed. So we're well versed at what should be done, and please give us a call and an opportunity to help you make sure that you're protected, as well as have a good response model for when ransomware does occur. Backup is a big portion of it. Kind of the number one area that ransomware promulgators are looking for, and making sure that you have a copy stored offline or air-gapped is extremely important aspect of that. Again, if you're not comfortable doing this yourself, we do have a managed service around this that can help you evaluate that. That's an arrow. Now we have another story just with regards to email. I thought I'd bring up on a different topic away from ransomware. There's a phishing email going around that's leveraging Teams. It's basically saying, hey, there's a new activity in Teams, and in your email, it's drawing users into this Teams event where they go out to the site. Unbeknownst to them, this is Microsoft no Teams URL, so the website looks very authentic. The authentication page obviously looks authentic. They enter their credentials get harvested, and that's one of the things occurring today in email. Secondly, there's another one going around with Coinbase, and Coinbase is another email. It looks very similar to what's on your screen. It provides consent for Coinbase to be used within Outlook. There are applications that can be launched into Outlook called O365 OAuth applications. These consent apps, I don't know if you'll notice on this next screen, they're actually providing user read, mail read, and mail read write permissions to the mailbox. So upon you logging in, that application has access to the mailbox, and you could see it as an individual user, apps and services you're given. And in fact, one of our services that we offer is around looking for applications like this to make sure that administrators know what applications might be installed on users' authentication. This is a slide we've shown many times around Microsoft stating that 0.5% of Azure AD accounts are compromised each month. What that means is if you're a 1,000 user organization, each month you're going to have 5 users compromised. Okay, and these are actual numbers that we bear out as we monitor on behalf of our customers. And Microsoft improved their tool. This is the article that's referenced there on Bleeping Computer just yesterday. Came out with an enhancement to their tool where it's not just 2 users where they're going to be able to guess the password spray. It's actually going to be 4 users. So we're now increasing this to 7 people that likely might be compromised as password spraying is becoming an increasingly popular way of getting some credentials. So there's a number of things that could be done about these, and we've kind of talked about these in previous months. We have a service where we're looking for indicators of compromise in your Office 365. It's called Security Review for Office 365. It's either a one-time event and evaluation of your site, or it can be an ongoing managed service where we're looking on a daily basis at logs and making sure that nothing squirrely is happening. Additionally, something like multi-factor authentication might be very helpful in the authentication space. So, in any case, these items lead us to the fact that if you're using this model, there certainly is a capability to try some of the things that we're suggesting. We have a trial program for security review for 365, phishing test, as well as a vulnerability scan that will allow us to kind of get some insights and do some handshakes with you, if you will, with regards to your security posture. We also can do, for some customers, a DNS protection trials for qualified customers. And these are the webinars we have coming up. We have one coming up tomorrow on setting schools up for success, explaining E-rate. The registration page is available on our Peters Events website. Obviously, recaps of things that we have spoken about earlier this month are available also on our blog page. And with that, that leaves us at the questions and page if there's anything remaining.